and I heard the first officer call out. And then the first officer jumps on the radio and he screams, "Holy shit, it's the goat man." And I mean, it's just like everything went quiet. And I could hear the ringing in my ears, and I could feel my heart race. And so I hit my light and I went flying up there.
I've been told by some older people, elders, that you grab them and you hold them and you don't own them, but you hold them there until daylight. If you can hold them or pull them into the light, it destroys anything they have, any kind of power or anything they were trying to do to you. It'll destroy them.
This guy was like bouncing, like, you know, like how you see people kind of getting ready to jig, you know how they kind of bounce? Yeah, he was like that way. He was just kind of bouncing, and he was just kind of going back and forth on one foot to the other. And he just kind of turned sideways, and he turned back over to the other way, and he took off. Holy shit, he jumped in Wanda.
This is Lodge Tales. I'm your host, Rod Williamson, and thanks again for joining us on another episode. If you are Native American and you'd like to come on the show to share your strange and paranormal experiences, please consider emailing us at lodgetales@gmail.com. This podcast, Arlin comes back and we talk about, well, at first I asked him some questions. I kind of had to edit this one around and move a few things around. We had a lot to talk about. So anyways, I moved some of the stuff around. Like, for instance, all the questions I asked him actually was at the end of the recording. So I moved those to the beginning just so, I don't know, I just kind of wanted those out there. I didn't want to put them on a Patreon episode because I wanted more people to be able to listen to the answers of the questions I was asking him. And this recording, I apologize. I made a big rookie mistake. I had what they call a gain. I had his gain all the way up. It's just basically the loudness of his mic I had way up there, and I didn't realize that I was in my podcast room and it was a little dark. I thought there was something wrong with the headphone cable, because I thought maybe my dog might have chewed it. So I was just kind of powering through. And I heard that distortion happening in there, and I didn't realize what it was. So I apologize to Arlin and to all y'all for having his audio sound the way it does. And you'll see, I apologize, and I forewarn you, it's distorted. But we can still hear what he says and everything like that. And my side was kind of a little low, like my volume was a little low. But anyways, I got that figured out again. It's my mistake, so I apologize. But anyways, there was another part in there too where I think it's on next episode. But anyways, he's telling a story, and we recorded so long that the recording like clipped itself and made it into two parts. And when that happened, there was part of his story that got cut out. So I'll be fixing that too. But anyways, Arlen goes into telling stories about the jail and, a lot around that, and boarding school too, the boarding school houses down there. So these are going to be some good stories for you guys this week. And I was trying to make it up for Indian days too, to be able to, just sit around at camp, tell stories to anybody that, wants to sit in at the camp and listen to ghost stories. That was kind of my plan. Work, I'm a subcontractor, and work just kept me tied down. So I'm hoping that I can get up there for Heartbeat Indian Days and maybe do it then. It's a little smaller powwow. I don't know if very many people be able to make it to that one that made it to this year's North American Indian Days. But the Heartbeat powwow is pretty good too, and that's the one that I really like because my wife's from out there, and I don't know, it just seems, it's smaller. It seems a little more, I don't know, I just have a lot of good memories from out there. So Anyways, if you can hear my kids, I don't know, they're playing around out there, so you hear them in the background, it's them. So, yeah, like I was saying, when I first start out, I'm asking him a bunch of questions, and I think these questions are kind of important for some of the viewers out there. And, well, without messing around, let's get into it. We don't really do the ghost hunting thing, but I know there are people that listen to this podcast that do that, or they want to do that, or they're thinking about it or something. What advice would you give to those types of people, those ghost hunter type people?
Oh, about visiting like places around here?
Just anywhere in the world, man. There's a lot of people that listen to this podcast. I mean, what advice would you give them if they're, deciding to go out and do this?
Oh, let's see here. I mean, talking about these things and stuff is one thing, but going out and finding them and looking for them, that's a whole different. But it's something I wouldn't do, I respect what it is and what it is,
Mm-hmm.
What is it, what ain't. Like, I respect that. If it was somebody close to me that said, I do this and what should I do? Well, first of all, every time I guess when you get back or you get done, always take care of yourself, cleanse yourself, but at the same time too, you're kind of asking for it when you go in places like that and seek them out,
Yeah.
Kind of asking for stuff like that to bother you or take, go home with, and because that's one of the most dangerous things, like you said, like in any way. It doesn't have to be traditional or any way, Indian way, in any Native American way or any indigenous way. It can even be like Christian or it's like people when they mess with Ouija boards and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
And when people say, "Oh yeah, you're creating a gateway or some type of portal, or you're communicating with things that you don't understand or know," yeah, I believe that,
Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't be messing with things you don't understand. Like, some things are best left alone in that way. And but usually, any advice I'll tell anybody is like, well, make sure you always call yourself when you go somewhere, and always trust your gut instinct and take care of yourself when you get back. But at the same time too, though, something happens or you see something or something doesn't go your way, like, well, you're kind of asking for it, like, the risk. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
Bringing something home or dealing with something that you have no idea about, and then all of a sudden you're trying to get help or whatever because something's followed you home or something's bothering you, kind of like no, I'm not saying Indians are. Well, that's kind of what you get,
Yeah, that's what you get.
We'll get doctored and whatever you need to, but like anyone else would tell you, any holy person would tell you, leave them alone, leave them alone now.
Yeah, that would be my advice to him. First and foremost is don't do it. Just leave him alone. Don't mess around with that stuff. And but if you're inclined to go and do all that, I basically have the same advice. So cleanse yourself before you go in there. Cleanse yourself before you leave. Call yourself. People might not understand what that is. We talk about it like it's nothing, but you're calling your spirit back with you. It's going to come with you, so it's not left anywhere. And you're not kind of out there and feeling lost while you're without your spirit, because that could happen. So anyways, always call yourself. And another thing that I was taught too is just spit and just tell it, simply don't follow me. If there's anything around here, don't follow me. And I've always wondered what that is. I never really was never explained to me why you'd spit like that before you'd head out, Yeah. I've always thought it was, maybe you're leaving a little piece of you there and it kind of jukes them out a little bit. Kind of tricks them to stay with that instead of with you. I have no idea what that is. It's that old kind of wisdom, I guess, or old superstitions, but they actually work. But
Yeah.
anyways, that's what I would tell people too. Is first of all, don't mess with that stuff. But if you have to, make sure you smudge yourself off before you go in, and when you leave, call yourself out, spit. Make sure nothing follows you. But the other thing
That's,
too. Oh, go ahead.
oh, but,
Well, I was gonna move
oh,
on to the subject, but if you got more to add to that, go
yeah,
ahead.
it's got something quick. Another thing too is, I know in Picanyway a long time ago, you're walking around and you just find something on the ground, whatever it is. We're taught not to pick it up, to leave it alone.
Yeah.
And I think because you don't know what it is or what it's attached to,
Yep.
and you might bring that home, So another thing I was taught is you find something like, oh, cool, check this out, But the other ways, like I was taught, you're supposed to just leave stuff like that alone,
Mm-hmm.
And then of course when you're walking with somebody, you never split anything. You walk together. Like me and you, see if there's a post in front of us and you walk left, I'll walk left, vice versa.
Yeah.
I walk right, you walk right. I was told we don't split things. You never split things. You're walking together, Yeah, those are just like things that I guess that go along with that.
Next thing I was wanting to kind of ask you is, so we have different levels of stories, right? Like those old traditional stories is what I'm referring to, and so the first one is for the kids. You'll tell stories, could be whatever story, but those old traditional stories. But it's just for the kids. It's kind of like G-rated. Then you'll have a story for everybody. That adults. Everybody can. It's kind of the general. The next one up, I guess I'd say it's more of kind of adults, but for everybody. And then you get that last story, last version of that story, where I guess it's told on I guess you'd say a high level, where you only get to hear that story if you're being transferred that right, or you're a part of that society, or whatever it is, whatever you need to have that story told to you for. Could you talk a little bit about those levels and why they're there?
So like a child story is just your general, because kids are always learning. You don't want to, I guess, sometimes go into too detail where they don't understand. Don't whistle at night. Don't look out the window and at night and stuff like that. There's certain things, and especially if you belong to some of these societies where you're part of them, they have their own rules, that you can't do. And it's very important that, as kids, like on Blackfeet Way a long time ago, we had societies when we started life and all the way till the death, You start with chickadees, like the Nipamo cakes, and that just teaches them the basic, teaches them protocol and stuff, because in Blackfeet Way, you're very strict. It's protocol, right? Protocol for everything. There's protocol for everything here, and it kind of teaches them that. And there's a reason. To me, it's like there's a reason and rhyme for everything, And so that's when they got your like Napi stories and stuff like that. That kind of teaches kids, kind of just gets them in that way of thinking. Like, especially if they belong to societies that eventually there's roles and there's like basically laws, and rules and things you can't do because there's consequences for that, Our way is really strict, and they emphasize that it's strict. It has to be this one way. You can't make up stuff or anything like that, So you're kind of teaching them young, and you teach them lessons, that'll help them in their way, you know what I mean? Especially as kids, to kind of help them understand. That's the way I see it, like Napi stories,
Yeah.
And then their lessons, and then of course what'd you say, the middle, kind of like the middle of it, like the everybody story.
Yeah.
There I think it's like more like your I don't know. I guess like. Oh, I would tie that into like the serious stories, like you said, the transfers, or like part of the societies that you're not supposed to, disclose in this way, like over the phone, or just like tell somebody, or because it's like going into a ceremony and taking pictures of the ceremony,
Oh,
which is really forbidden. Like you don't do that.
mm-hmm.
There's no need for that. It's kind of like that. Basically, the serious stories and stuff is like the experiences that you've seen or heard, in your own accord. You just don't push. You just don't go and tell everybody, and put it out there. For some things are meant for just you and whoever else.
Yeah.
And that ties into both, like that middle question and the serious question.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's definitely boundaries there when it comes to the serious stuff. Like we talk a lot on this Lodge Tales about things and stuff like that, but but it's mainly stuff that will, to me, when I talk about something, it's mainly like to spread knowledge, like just so people understand. And maybe if it's like a thing I can say, well, somebody will know, somebody will understand, or somebody will learn. Learning.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, I've never heard that before. That's that's interesting, or that makes sense. And but I'll never step those boundaries where I'll say something I'm not supposed to, and then get reprimanded for it later. Like
Yeah.
I'm pretty good about that. And but like you said, like it just depends on the situation, the questions, and if somebody like really wanted to know something, it's always good to approach somebody that you think can ask them that would know.
Mm-hmm.
No matter, because if anyone approached me and asked me for something, if I had the answer, yeah, I'll tell you. But if I didn't, I'd point you to the direction, tell you to go ask.
Yeah.
But there's no such thing, as a silly question or anything like that, And when it comes to these stories and stuff, a person can basically tell what they want. You know what I mean? That's their right if they want to share their experience and stuff. But when like me and like when it comes to real serious protocol and stuff like that, we won't really disclose all that, and it's not our place.
Yeah.
Especially to say how a ceremony is run and stuff like that. No, we don't.
Yeah,
of course we don't do that.
You can tell that. Which that brings me to my next question. What say there's some, I don't know, I guess some natives that are getting back in touch with the old ways, and they're trying to come back to it. You know? Like say they might have moved off to res. Heck, they might even still be on the res all this time, but they're just trying to get back to those old ways. How would you tell them to approach that in a good way, like what advice would you give them to seek that out?
The first thing I'd do is, like, if they came to me, and I happen to know people, happen to know and understand things. Like me, I would be like, like we talked about earlier, I only know the Blackfeet way, the Picanni way,
Mm-hmm.
I just know that way. And I know that, like we talked about earlier, there's another way here that people follow, like the Sundance, I don't know if you call it the Cree or Sioux way, but, more people more or less adopted it, and
Mm-hmm.
some go that way, I can't speak for them on that side, and, but I can speak for, the Picanni way, the way I know and the way I came into it. If somebody approached, the only thing I can say is, you're Picanni, if you're Blackfeet, you're always welcome to these, Nobody can shun you and say, no, you can't come here. Those ceremonies, those bundles and medicines are for us. They're for everybody, all Picanni. Everybody needs help. It's like we talked about earlier. And, yeah, you're gonna, my only thing is, if you come to the pipe dances, which means we have, beaver bundles, we have thunder bundles. We even have, what do you call it, the catchers, police, or warriors pipe, we have those ceremonies, and You know, it's another good one too is we have the horns down here now.
Mm-hmm.
It's a society that's come here from Ghana that's now here in Mscapi Picani. So we have them now. And of course, if you ever hear of the Okan, it's usually in July in the summertime when, that's just show up to these ceremonies, but being here and rounding and stuff and how everything is, somebody should know somebody, And my advice to them is when you hear a pipe opening or pipe dance is going to happen, just show up. Like I tell everybody, just show up, and just observe, Don't just go there humbly. Don't expect to, have rights and everything transferred. Right? Don't ever seek this stuff out. I believe this. You go into this in a good way, in a humble way. You'll be where you're supposed to be, and everything else will follow. Like you never seek this stuff out. Go. If your heart's good on it and you're set on it, go.
Yeah.
And once you're in these ceremonies, you'll sit there and you'll learn. You'll watch and you'll learn. You'll learn how everything's done. In Blackfeet way, I know there's protocol for everything. Protocol and rights. Like there's a right way to do everything that has to be done the right way. That's why I say like Blackfeet way, because it's really strict. And so please, if anyone goes in a good way, go with an open mind. But I can only speak for the Blackfeet way. I can't speak for the Sundance and stuff like that, because I have no idea other than what I've been told from that way. And so if you were going to go that way, I would recommend, somebody who knows those ways, and approach them in a good way. It's like somebody to approach me in a good way and say, hey, Bots, how do I get more into our ways,
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people, I don't know why, they have a misconception that traditionally, before traditional, we dance like the powwow. I don't know where that comes from, but have you ever got that?
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah. Like they dance, like you dancing, and it's like, no, the powwow is just a social event.
Yeah.
There's nothing traditional like our way of life in that sense goes to that, and there's nothing like that. It's just a social event where people get together and dance and have a good time,
Mm-hmm.
But our ceremony way of life is way different. That's serious. That's our way of life. And I can say Blackfeet way, we follow the circle of life, and that way is still very much around today. Like I said, we have our bundles, and we do have the Okan every summer down here in Picani. And I can't speak for Ghana or Siksika. I don't know about Picani, Patoksa Picani, Rocket. I can't speak to. I know they have medicines in their bundles and stuff, but I don't know exactly what ceremonies they have going there. But I can speak down here that the Okan they have every year. If you know what the Okan is, like basically our high ceremony towards the summertime. It's like our high ceremony. Everybody comes together, and it's for one cause. When two people sit holy, and it's a good ceremony, and it's as far as I'll go with it. And just like I said, with Picani way, Rocky way, yeah, I can tell you where to go, and when the pipe dances and stuff happen, just to get involved. Just go there and observe and watch, and in time you'll learn more and more the more you go. It's pretty much like some people are born into it and this and that, and like you said, but then some people, like maybe they left, or maybe they haven't got into it, but they want to, they want something else to go towards,
Mm-hmm.
Especially like Blackfeet way, like I can speak for that side, everything I've been through and experienced, but when it comes to the other way, I can't, they'll have to seek somebody else who's been through that way. You mean the Sundance and all that. But yeah, that would be my advice, Don't be afraid to approach somebody and embrace that, But be humble about it. Like, be good about it. Don't go there for wants and status. Like, that's not how our ways work.
No.
Our ways are powerful, and they're in black and white. There's consequences for everything. So that's why we're like strictly protocol. Like go there humbly in a good way. Especially if you need help. They'll never turn you away in that sense. Those medicines are here for us. Well, that's the advice I'd give somebody if they asked.
How about specifically to like the younger generation? Say there's a kid out there listening. He's 10 years old and he's curious about all this, but his folks don't know anything about it, or maybe his grandparents or don't know anything, or maybe they're passed on, and he wants to get closer to our old ways. How would you advise a kid like that? Basically the same way, or
yeah, very similar. Like I would I'll talk to him or her and then talk to their parents. And if the parents were okay with it, maybe they didn't want to go or something. I wouldn't mind helping someone out.
Yeah.
Kind of showing them. Kind of maybe bringing them to a ceremony with us. That's my take on it. Like if a 10-year-old came and say I know his parents, his or her parents, and they're like, they want to know what goes on. Like they just want to know. Can they come with you? Or something like that. And honestly, I don't think me or my wife would have problems with that. We embrace that.
Yeah.
And teach them whatever you can, so maybe they want to go every time they have a ceremony and their parents come, maybe, or something. You know what I mean? But like I said, everything's pretty similar. You just approach someone, in a good way, and you just go from there, because you just tell them, well, usually whenever they announce, these dances or these ceremonies. So sometimes they're quick and abrupt, though. But sometimes, they announce about a week or so you get time to prepare. Yeah, but it's a good time, It's good for everybody.
The other thing, too, is you don't ever go to those drunk or on drugs or anything like that. You never show up to those like that. You're always sober and, in a good mindset. You ain't mad about anything, or, imagine it's okay to be a little scared if you're worried, you're there because you might be sick, or you're worried about someone that's sick, but you'll never go there when you're in a bad way, per se, like drunk or anything like that,
Yeah, you go there and, it's like, you go there respectfully, sober and humble, like, especially if you're there to, when you get more into black way, people talk about vows, If you're there to fulfill your vows and be humble, in a good way, like, everybody's there for each other, that's how we all survived the way we did,
Yeah.
Everything was about each other, and especially in our way of life and our medicine, that's how it is. It's not stingy. It's there for everybody.
That's a good thing, though, that we still have that stuff. Well, geez, Arlin, I think we need to call it quits right now.
Yeah.
Where we're at, just so everybody knows, it's 3:07 in the morning, our time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I better get some shut-eye here, but, geez, is there anything else you wanted to add before we get going and call it a night?
Just want everybody to, it's 4th of July, so if everybody had a good 4th, and, if any of you guys are, out there and if you're curious about these ways and stuff like that, like, don't be afraid to approach anyone, like, especially me, like, don't be afraid to approach me if you want to know more and stuff like that. Like, that's very important, can't be turned away in that sense. Like, if I don't know a question or your answer or anything like that, I can point you in the right direction. Especially those out there that listen and they're in need of help or prayer, maybe something's bothering you, like, in these ways, like, spiritually, emotionally, or even physically, I don't be afraid to approach any of us, especially me. I'll point you in the right way. And one way these ways being traditional teaches us is how to take care of ourselves in these situations so nothing bothers you. And if something does, you'll know what to do. So other than that, that's pretty much all. Let's hope everybody has a good 4th and thank God for calling and visiting earlier, and yeah, everybody has a good day, and we continue this going, and like me, I keep sharing this with everybody I know, so this grows, and it's good that we have these and we're able to tell these stories, and without any, to me, without any consequence or remorse, just to get it out there, because it seems like, for Native Americans, it's unique. We're unique in that way. Indigenous people, that, our stories be heard, and they're out there now, and it's not just about, I guess, other cultures where it's just, very, how would I say, exploited, and stuff like that. Everything's unique here with us Indigenous people, and how we handle and see life and do things. So.
All right, and this is the part where we transition. These questions, like I said, were actually from the end of the interview, but I put them up front. So here's where we actually begin our conversation. We start talking a lot about different ghost stories and stuff. So here we go. My dog's always blowing out of his nose. Every time you guys hear that, it's my dog. Okay, let's get to it. Okay, everybody, we're back at Lodge Tales again. In this episode, we have Arlin Potts back again. And he's got a few more stories to share that he didn't get to share the last time he was on. So go ahead, Arlin, if you will. Just let us hear your stories.
Hello, good to be back again. I'm Arlin Potts. A lot of those listening in the Blackie Ranch probably know me, remember me at some point. I was a police officer in law enforcement. I've been in law enforcement since 2012. And I currently work at the jail here in Browning. And there's a few stories that I've heard past former law enforcement people talk about the jail. And this says when you were explaining, as Mike Conley was explaining everything in the jail, I was just kind of picturing it in my mind when he was going through that. When he's talking about the corner and the part where he has to unlock that door, it's spring-loaded, and that area there, and it's still there, and I always thought there was some kind of vibe in that corner, man, where he's talking about.
Yeah.
No. So that brings me to a time that this was probably within about a month or a couple months ago. I was on the day shift, and on the female side, we get ready to bring females over to the day room, and we usually tell them get ready. They get their cups, and some of them bring their blanket, because they get cold in there.
Mm-hmm.
So the day room's a place for them to make calls and watch TV and interact with each other and play cards and stuff. Kind of kills their time,
Yeah.
They're not in their cells all the time. I remember one time getting the females ready, and there's the end in that hallway way in the corner. There's two ways you can go. There's the first, I'll call it the first way, and that's basically the way we mainly take.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got there wasn't too many females. There must have been maybe 8 of them at the most, 6 to 8. But anyways, they're getting ready, and I have them lined up, and I have them getting ready to move over. All of a sudden, in the end, way on the end of the hallway, I see a female literally wearing those green sweaters we give them and carrying her blanket, and she had pink bottoms, pants. And I don't see no face. I just seen her turn left face, and then just kind of go around that corner while those girls are lined up getting ready. And I'm like, hey, come back here, And those girls are like, who you talking to, And I'm like, are all you guys here? And they're like, yeah. I said, good. I said, oh, it don't matter. I said, I'll meet her over there. We'll meet her over there anyway, because there's 2 ways to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I said, you go and your lady's going to head over. So the women head over, and I catch up the back, and I follow them over. And they automatically know where to go. They go right into the day room, and I count all of them. And then I'm looking for that last one, because I think it was 8 of them. There should, including that one I seen, there should be 9.
Oh.
And then I locked it up after I don't find that girl, and I go back. I follow where she would have came from. And I go back to the cells on the other side where I seen her, and I walk all the way down. Dude, I couldn't find nobody. There was nobody there. And I even go like I make sure we have how many inmates we have, and sure enough, I counted 9, but there's only 8 there. I mean, there's only 8 on our list, but I counted 9.
Weird.
And, I could never find that other one. And but people talk about, other COs have talked about seeing things like that there. And one time I've seen on surveillance camera, I've seen a shadow literally walk out of the holding cell and walk down the hallway. Me and another coworker witnessed that on camera. And the holding cell is basically a cell where you kind of put them to cool off. If they come in fired up and combative, it's usually where we put them so they calm. And I know for a fact, there's bad shit in there. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Bad stuff in there. 'Cause that's where they first come in if they're really combative and refuse to calm down. Or we have to put them in there and segregate them. Segregation cell. And I've seen things walk out of there. I mean, I remember one time too. We were taking the females out the dairy room to go use the bathroom. We line them up and they start walking out, and we're going that back way where the cell block or the holding cell's open.
Mm-hmm.
And we always have our doors open, because we need them. They're there, they're ready. Literally, that girl walks really right up to that door, and she's getting ready to cross that doorway and turn right and go down the hallway. She freezes, like she jumps and she screams when she runs forward. And I'm like, and those other girls behind her just kind of stop. And they look in there, in the holding cell. They're like, oh, what was that? What's going on? And I catch up to that one that's freaking out, and she said she's seen somebody in there. Just standing there or something.
Oh.
And it freaked her out, man. She was legit. Like, she's been there a while. She ain't, like, coming down or anything like that,
Yeah.
She's been there a while, so she knows what's going on. And when she freaked out and she saw somebody there, and she said she didn't want to deal with it, so she ran around that corner. Those other girls were looking, and even I looked through there as I passed it, and there's nobody in there. So it was this, I was like, well, and then kind of, I just kind of said, I said, don't worry, ladies, you guys will get used to it. It's just, there's a lot of stuff goes on there. It's like normal to us. And another time too, like I was sitting there doing control, and the control was control is basically your computers and stuff like that, right? Logs and all that kind of stuff, paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm doing control, and the other COs are in the cell block doing whatever they're doing, whatever chores or whatever they're doing with the inmates. And I see a figure standing by the main door to the control room, a large figure, a quarter of my eye. And by the time I see him, I turn left, he kind of walks forward, like out of the doorway. So he's gone, and I yell at one of those COs, and they come around right away. He comes in there. I say, hey, dude, was there somebody else back there with you too? And he's like, no. So check that little area and check there's nobody there, dude.
Jeez.
But then I've heard other CO stories too of that jail. One of my good COs, she recently retired, but she ever comes on yours, that'd be one. I'll give you information. She'd be one to have come on. And she's worked in corrections like 30 years.
Oh.
Be one to come on and probably tell you some good ones,
Yeah.
about that more than I would. I've only worked in corrections for maybe 2 years, going on 2 years now. The rest was all patrol. But one time she told me this story of when she was in the kitchen area. And that's another place I guess is pretty spooky. And she was doing dishes, I believe, and they got vents that kind of like let air out, up in the ceiling. And she said, I don't know how it was, but anyway, she was doing dishes. I don't know if she was hearing stuff or what, but she looks up into that vent, and it's an open vent. It's not a crated vent or anything. It's open. And she tells me, she says, I see like a pale face, an old woman's face, like a creepy face, I guess. She said, it looks kind of scary. She said, I looked up and seen her looking down at me from that vent. And she's like, she says, I think she just froze. And she finally like gets, breaks out of that and gets away. Then somebody else, they go back up, and of course there's nobody there. And I don't even, like, I look when I'm in there, because, as CO, sometimes we have to cook, and or prepare, or, whatever we need. If there's dishes or something, we take care of them,
Mm-hmm.
Every time I'm in there by myself, I always look at that one vent she talks about, speakers. And, but yeah, there's a lot of things in that jail that I know people see and do. Just like another coworker, this happened about maybe 2 months ago. A coworker brought back the cart we used to bring the inmates lunch trays on.
Yeah.
And we just finished serving out lunch, and he's bringing it back. And actually, our cook is actually like the one that cooked is actually visiting us.
Uh-huh.
And she's actually like in the same area we're at, and he brings it back, and he's like, I said, all right. He brings it back, and he comes back in, and he walks the door, and he's like, oh, holy yes, what are you doing here? And the cook's like, what do you mean? Like, am I not supposed to be here? He's like, no, I thought I just gave the cart to you. Like, I literally handed it off to you. You said thank you, and I walked up here, and here you are.
Oh.
Yeah, he said that. He walked back there. He walked in there. He said, here you go, ma'am. Here's your cart. So you can start your dishes. And whoever it was said, thank you. And he walked away, like acknowledged him and walked away. And he walked away. Walks in, walks up to where we are, and he sees the cook there. And he's like, what? Yeah, he's like, really? And he goes back there, and there's nobody there. And if somebody leaves the building, we know if somebody leaves the building, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're able to know if anyone opens the door or anything. We know what's going on. Nobody opened the door or anything. He was like flipping out, and he's asking me, like, and then she was like, the cook was asking me. And I was like, I said, you'll be all right, as long as he's, and another black way too is if you see somebody, you see them and somewhere else, that's not, usually it's not a good sign,
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, no, you guys are going to be fine, because he's like, yeah, I didn't even know if that was, her or not. Is this somebody acknowledging me giving that cart saying thank you, And I was like, man, there's there's things here, there's this spirits here, But I don't think it was necessarily bad, just one of those things.
Jeez, I wonder what happened to the cart. Did she push it away, I wonder?
Oh, he kind of just wheeled it to her. Well, he said I didn't see her face or anything.
Yeah.
He said I could just see like a silhouette or a body, and I'm assuming it's somebody. He said in the corner of my eye. I wasn't thinking about it. He said I just kind of pulled the cart into the kitchen and kind of pushed it off, and said, "Here you go, ma'am," and seen somebody in there like facing the desk or whatever, away from the door, and assumed it was our cook, another female. And walked away thinking, oh, okay, yeah. And he comes in, that's when his eyes get big, and he's like, what are you doing here, basically. Like, I just saw you. And so she was asking me, like, should I be worried or anything? I was like, oh, you'll be fine, I don't think he's seen you, it was just somebody else.
Yeah.
And I said, you'll be fine. And, yeah, it was crazy, but that's like, it's almost like an everyday occurrence or something that happens. If you ask any of the SEALs that work there now or former ones, it'd be like they have a story similar or something happened, And this is just, like recent, sometimes you'll hear stuff in the admin side that, just stuff that moves around, you hear noise. We've gotten so used to it now, we kind of just let it go,
Mm-hmm.
And so, especially working at night, I work nights, and that's how I am. I hear stuff, see stuff, I was like, yeah, I'm just doing my job, that's all. Of course, one thing, like, you always call yourself, when you
Yeah.
go home,
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. I always like to smudge when it's my Friday, every time I come home, Natusi is up, I always, of course, cleanse with sage, that whatever doesn't bother me or pull me home, I want
Yeah.
to take none of that. So, it's a process working there, especially in our way, being traditional and, you have to take those extra steps to protect yourself, your family. So,
You
but
don't.
yeah, oh, good.
I was gonna say you don't want to bring any of that home with you. You know,
Oh, yeah.
leave
You
it
don't want
there.
to, yeah, you don't want to bring anything home, and then you start the process, you have to cleanse your home, And it's good to cleanse your home every now and then, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And create your barriers, But still, I always make those precautions so I don't take anything home. But have you any questions? Like, have you ever had any questions about the jail? Or?
Well, I guess I would just wonder what's the craziest, I guess, wildest story you've ever heard about the place and the jail.
Let's see here. That one my coworker told about that old lady looking down at her was pretty gnarly.
Oh, yeah.
And that was a good shit. This is like the full version of it. I just told you like a bit of it, and another one that was probably the gnarliest. Well, let's see here. Trying to think without. Oh, I've heard people heard. I've never experienced this, but I've heard other. Oh, sometimes that toilet, the back cell will just go off by itself. It's done that a few times, and man, it'll just keep going, just run for a while,
Oh,
like so, constantly pushing it.
yeah.
The push. It'll do. I got used to that. Like when I first heard it, I was like, "What the hell's back there?" We didn't have many in that night, and there wasn't nobody in that cell. And I heard it going off, like somebody's flushing it. I'm like, what the hell? Because everybody's locked up, Nobody should be back there. So I walk back there, and it's that same cell Mike talks about, where they used to keep juveniles and stuff in the back.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of eerie. Like when you go back in that corner, it's just quiet, like eerie quiet. And but I went back there, and there's nobody back there. I just see the toilet running, and I'm like, oh man, because like I mentioned before, I can't stay in those cells long if I go in them, because of whatever's in there, it really bothers me. I can't stay in there for a long period of time, inside the cell.
Oh,
Just the bad things that are left there, like I guess I'm really sensitive to it,
yeah.
and so I just do my job and do what I have to do. I don't linger more than I have to. But yeah, the craziest one I guess is that one my coworker says when she saw that woman, like looking down at her. She's doing most dishes. I still
God.
try to crack me up. Like, man, that'd be pretty gnarly. Pretty scary. I'd be like, how did you get up there?
Oh. No, like
Um,
I've heard stories about that place before. Well, I remember the one that I heard. I think it's the very first story I've ever heard about the jail. It was somebody. I don't remember who told me or what, but it was a long time ago. I've heard this. It had to be before 2000 sometime. But anyways, they said there was a guy in there screaming, trying to figure out why he was screaming, and here I guess there was he just kept telling man there's some guy Shaggy that keeps peeking in here at me, through that door, that cell door. And
yeah.
it's not a cop, it's not a trustee, it ain't nobody like that. And I guess it happened down that row too a couple times. It just walk in there and just peek in.
Mm.
Others wouldn't react, but I guess this guy it would have scared the hell out of him. He just starts screaming.
Mm.
I remember that's one story I heard about that place before anything else. And I remember hearing a story about somebody in the shower and behind that shower curtain. I
Yeah.
just it's all I remember was there was a bad spirit of some kind in that shower where that
Mm.
curtain was, and then Mike starts telling stories about this. I imagine it's the same place.
Yeah, yeah, I know. When he was explaining that, yeah, I was picturing that in my head because I know the layout of the jail and I know exactly where he's talking about. And it reminds me of another one. A long time ago, this another coworker told me this. So I'll tell it as she told me. He said a long time ago they used to shut the lights off in the cells, so they could sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the only light would be coming through is that there's a hole in the door with the glass.
Yeah.
You can be outside, and there's a little crate in the bottom that just has a bunch of holes in it. But light would get through, and then there's a little, maybe about an inch under the door. Light could come under. So, anyways, this it was on the male side, I believe, and she didn't mention names, I don't think. But anyways, the inmates inside there were complaining to the CO that, hey, can you leave the lights on? We'll just sleep with the lights on. They're like, oh, you know what? Why? And then finally, after a couple nights, they were like really agitated about it, And so they're like, yeah, and then my coworker, she's like, well, what's going on? And the inmate told her, he said, well, at night there's someone, I don't know who he is, but he comes around. He's not a CO. He's not another inmate. I mean, we don't know who he is, but he stands in front of that door. We can't really see him. He just stands there, but his feet go underneath the door, and you can literally see his feet, his big feet. They're literally sticking underneath the door into the cell, and he just stands there for a long time.
Oh.
He blocks out, the light coming in.
Yeah.
And now, we're getting scared. We don't know who he is, but we know it's not one of you guys. And he just stands there, then he'll leave. And they're getting scared, So that's another one she told me. I was like, holy. Man, I've heard it. Yeah, I've heard that one. But yeah, most of the time, we hear noises, stuff like that. Of course, if it's really big banging or something, I'll go check it out. Most of the time, we're like so used to it. That building's so old. I believe there's a lot of things in there. And, we just do our job, leave us alone. We're just doing our job. And especially when ones come in and they're fired up, man, they're intoxicated and under the, unknown substance. And, the tension they bring in, you can feel that.
Yeah.
And it's like, sometimes it lingers when they're there. The things that our people endure, they're just bad,
Mm-hmm.
And stuff that, left there and stuff like that.
I wonder when that jail was built, do you know?
I believe it was built, I don't know if it was the 50s, I think. 60s. I do remember somebody we booked in one time, he's like, I remember my old man built this jail. I was like, oh, really? He's like, yeah, that night after they completed it, they went out and partied. He said, here, remember my dad was one of the first guys in here. He got too drunk that night, and they ended up in here. I just remember him telling me that. But he said, I think it was the 50s or 60s, I want to remember.
Man,
somewhere around there.
Pretty old.
Yeah. So I've heard a lot of things about that jail. A lot of spook stories.
Yeah, I always wonder too about those, those buildings, like as you're heading toward, I don't know the name of the road, but as you're heading east out of that jail from that road that's right in front, and it goes to that T intersection, by the commodity house, that big old brown log looking building. Then that one, that one right next across the street from it, and that's a white one. I've always wondered, well, see, because that big brown one, I remember when I was a kid, my grandpa brought me in there, and he said, oh wait, we gotta go see this guy in here. I don't know, they were talking Indian about something, but they were talking. I just followed him in. I remember it was really dark, and we walked upstairs, and that guy was up there. I just remember his name was Bernard. I don't know what his last name was. I just remember his name was Bernard. But they talked for a while, and that old guy's, well, I guess he was around the same age as my grandpa, but he lived up in that room. I remember it was a wide open area. He had a desk and a lamp on in there, and papers out on his desk, and they were talking about something, and I was just kind of waiting for him, and we went out there. But I was always scared of that place because when we walked in there that night, it felt creepy, and just a little kid probably being scared of the dark. But I've always wondered if there was something, in any kind of ghost stories around those two buildings. I've always wondered that. Have you ever heard anything about those?
No, other than I always wondered the same thing. It's like I know, and I think now at some point they use them for storage, and then at the bottom of that brown building they use it for maintenance or something like that.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, they still use it. Just the white building's completely pretty much locked up. There's broken windows up top, but I don't know what there. I imagine there's old papers going way back. They just kind of left it.
Yeah. I wonder what those were back in the day originally.
I have no idea. I just remember. Oh man, you know who else you can talk to is he told me this story. It was Maynard Kit.
Mm-hmm.
He told me the story when they were cops a long time ago. Him and another cop, they were out to. Oh man, where were they? They were talking about they're bringing someone in. They're just giving them a ride. I think it was a female. But anyways, by the time they get between those buildings and they're heading to the jail, back then it used to be like a justice center. You just had everything in one. Your dispatch, police, and jail in one.
Mm-hmm.
I guess they looked back and that person that they were giving a ride to was gone.
Oh.
And one of them just said, "Stop, let me off right here. I'll just walk to the jail." So that guy driving had to bring that car to there. That's the only thing close to her to that area. That's about it there, though. I never hear too much about that.
I've heard a few stories about people picking up hitchhikers and them just basically vanishing,
Yeah, I've heard the same thing too. That they would be gone by the time they get to a certain point.
Or one time, my grandpa and them, I guess they were, what was it, going to town from Temed, and when they get up on top of that Medicine Hill there was three hitchhikers back there. No, there was two of them. That's right. There was two hitchhikers. My grandpa was with somebody. I want to say it was Francis Potts or maybe even Al Potts.
Oh.
But he was with somebody. But anyways, they said, "Well, get in," and they got him in, and you guys want cigarettes and whatever, and they give them cigarettes. Well, as they got closer to town, they got over Spring Hill. Somewhere in town there, before the Y, they asked to get off. They said, "Oh, this will be good right here." But here when they got off and they pulled away, they were looking back and there was three of them instead of two. But just two got in. If I remember his story right, that's how that one went.
Wow.
Yeah, so not just picking up disappearing hitchhikers, but picking up extra, not knowing there was more there or whatever. Yeah, that was the story I heard about that. Yeah, Arlen and I will continue our conversation on the next episode, and for next couple weeks here, we'll have part 2 of this one out. It's actually part 4 of all of his stuff that'll be coming out on the next release. So I hope to see more people reaching out to me, in the future. Like I said, if you guys are worried about being recorded on your voice recorded, don't even worry about it. Just email me a story. I can take your story and just read it, and we don't have to tell your name, nothing like that. We can make it be like, all right, there's a person from the Blackfeet Res, and they'd like to share a story but remain anonymous. So here goes the story. And if they decide to put names in there and they want to remain anonymous themselves, I'll change the names too. It's no big deal. We could just change them all, but we just want the stories out there, you know what I mean? The experiences and stuff like that, and not trying to make anybody uncomfortable or anything like that. It's kind of totally against the whole show. We just want to hear more ghost stories. It's kind of what it boils down to, and different things like our ways of life. Those are really good insights to share as well. There's a ton of podcasts out there that I'm not bashing other people that are doing podcasts. I know how much work goes into them, and I think it's a good thing that they do. When they're trying to put these podcasts out for themselves, it's a lot of work. So but what I'm saying is, a lot of times, like I just found another podcast, and I won't mention it, but I found it over the weekend, and I was trying to listen to it, but again, it's two non-natives talking about native stuff, and it's just, they make fun of a lot of it, and they really don't know what they're talking about, and their stories come from books. Oh, I did the research here. And so they're just regurgitating what somebody, wrote long time ago. And a lot of that stuff comes from non-natives. They're looking at the indigenous ways or whatever they're writing about from a non-native perspective, right? So a lot of the translations get lost, the meanings get lost. They're just describing it how they see it through their eyes. And you lose something when that happens. I think it's not very, how would I say it? It's always lacking something, right? Like the depth or the understanding or whatever it is. And more often than not, I see them cover that up through humor. They'll try to make fun of what they're talking about. Anyways, enough on all that. I think I'd start beating a dead horse at this point. So, well, until next time, huh?